Your spouse does something you absolutely despise. How would you like to react less? Your daughter is making choices you don't agree with, and your response falls on her in a disempowering and condescending way when you want to raise her up. In heated moments with piles of situational stressors on you, it's one thing to try to react less, and it's another to do it. My guest is an executive coach for female leaders and has the anecdote for that. We're diving into how you can step into your power. Are you retired? Stay with me. You run the home. You influence 85% of household decisions. You're the CEO of your life and your health. And if you've worked a day in your life, you know the hardest thing about any job is communication. So it is with any relationship. So whether you're working, you worked at home, or you're retired, you'll find a juicy nugget here for you and for your daughters in this one. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns. Most of all, we hope to inspire you about the power of women and how we can age so very differently than any generation before us ever has. But we won't have a role model. We will have to be it and create our own. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so you can have the energy and vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. Let's dive into this. For once, we're talking about power, but not necessarily that comes with lifting a heavy weight. My guest is Dr. Sharon Melnick. She's an executive coach for women leaders who shows them how to be heard, stop second guessing, and use their power to create change. Her approaches are informed by 10 years of psychology research at Harvard Medical School. She coached, trained 40,000 professionals at over 50 Fortune 500 companies and numerous startups and women-led companies, and presented at conferences worldwide, including the White House, West Point, and the United Nations. Her book about how women can use their power to advance their career and end disrespect is titled Your Power, React Less, Regain Control, Raise Others. It's available now for pre-order. She's also the best-selling author of Success Under Stress, Powerful Tools to Stay Calm, Confident, and Productive When the Pressure's On. Dr. Melnick enjoys hosting the Power Shift podcast. Let's dive in. Dr. Sharon Melnick, thanks so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here with you, Deborah.
All right, so I'm taking my warrior pose, and I want you to define this. What does it mean to be in your power, and why do we need it?
Yeah. So when you're in your power, you're able to stay good in you, no matter what's going on around you. Like, you have ownership over yourself. You know that you'll be okay and that you'll land well, whatever the situation is. And you can keep yourself or get back into a good state. And that is so important because from that state, you can act in a way that makes the situation better so that you can actually get the outcome that you want, and you can make the situation better for everyone. And when you're not in your power, then you usually react, not respond with intention. You kind of get into a mental swirl and your mind just gets noisy. And oftentimes, the way that you're trying to make the situation better makes it worse, or at least keeps the situation, perpetuating. And you kind of show up as a diminished version of yourself, which just kind of keeps you out of your power. So you really want to have the ability to be in your power so that you can use your power to make the situation better for you and for everyone involved.
Beautiful. Okay, so would you do me a favor? Can you describe a woman? How does she behave and act and go through the day if she's in her power? And then I'm going to ask you to do the opposite. She's out of her power. What does that look like? Feel like?
Yeah, totally. Well, if okay, we're going to do it in the reverse order because it's possible that out of your power might sound more familiar for some people.
Mhm.
So it kind of depends what your life is like, but being in or out of your power is relevant for everyone. So let's say that you wake up in the morning and you're trying to get your kids ready and they're not cooperating, right? So you might get kicked out of your power if you react to that situation and if you make it mean something about you and what it means about you as a parent, or you feel guilty or you feel stressed, and then you start thinking about the rest of your day and kind of feeling overwhelmed, how you're already backed up. So you're already going to start to be in that reactive state. And then let's say you go into whatever your working scenario is, and maybe you're talented and you're kind of up for a promotion or some big opportunity, and you do a bang up job on a presentation, but your boss kind of talks over you or doesn't give you credit for what it was that you did. Or then when you follow up and ask about the promotion, you get some sort of a postponement, or you don't really feel supported, you feel undervalued. So then you take it personally and you're kind of resentful and you're spinning the rest of the day. Like, you know what I mean? Did you respond with a tone? Are you not feeling valued? And then you're just like rehashing it the rest of the day and into the night. And then you're going to be like exhausted the next day because you didn't sleep well. And then maybe, maybe you're also a leader of a team, or maybe alternatively, like you have your own company and you have a team of people, and there's someone who's really good at what they do and like really a key player for you, but you just can't get them to like cooperate or like have the personality that you need them to have. And so you just feel so like done to, and it just makes you spin like, should you keep them? Should you let them go? What is it about you as a leader? Are you a bad leader? And then again, all of that kind of emotional hijack. And then whatever it is, maybe when you get home, you are carrying the stress of the day and you really intended to get out on time and to go do one of your workouts, that they learned from you. And they just were feeling, kind of negative about it. And so they didn't really take care of themselves. They didn't leave the office on time, and then they didn't do their workout. And then they're just feeling, kind of bad about themselves and in that like yucky state. So maybe they'll overeat or something when they get home. So these are just, it could be any examples. Maybe somewhere throughout that day, someone wasn't respectful to you. And, we all know what it's like to work while female. So maybe someone made a microaggression where they didn't, you were asked to do some sort of office housework that, why did they choose you to do it, kind of thing. And so it's kind of niggling at you, any form of disrespect or just not feeling like your needs are met or feeling undervalued or underrecognized or any of these kind of situations. The whole point of being out of your power is like when you just feel like, somebody else's actions are determining how you feel about yourself and how your day goes. And you don't feel in control, and whatever you tried to do, didn't really help the situation. So I would say that's what kind of a day in the life would be. It's a great question of being out of your power. And it might not be just that day. Like if it's someone who's important in your life, whether it's like a colleague that you work with or a boss that you have to see every day, or if it's a family member who's really critical of you or all about them and it's never about you, then that situation goes on, and you might just, get into a routine or kind of have a pattern of dealing with them where, you're always trying to please them. You're always suppressing your own needs, and, silently you feel resentful of them, or it could be anything. You're trying to be perfect, or you get shut down, or you get triggered. And this just becomes kind of a way of being in the world. So I don't know if that was relevant for any of your listeners, if you want to add in some common scenarios that you hear, but these are things that are just really common for women.
Yeah, no, I think that resonated with a lot of them. What I want to do is capture all of you who are saying, well, I'm not working. I think this is all still so relevant because no matter what we're doing, I mean, women run the show. So you and I, quite a while ago, talked about this kind of in the green room, that our mission here and the whole umbrella is that women, we need to be taking care of ourselves because there's no more powerful health influencer in the world than a midlife woman. Whether you have a family,
Love it.
it's a domino effect on them, or your friends, or it is the other people that you work with or around, they're actually looking to you. You're in a place where you've got all this wisdom and experience, and you're not old enough to be outdated or dinosaured. They're actually looking at what you're doing and what you value. And so, even if we're at home, we're retired, or we've always worked but at home, let's credit those women who've done that. We get triggered all day. You use that word, and that's what I was thinking the whole time. So, when we do get triggered, how do we prevent ourselves from reacting? How can we catch it and stop?
Yeah. And you're so spot on in what you're saying. I just love that idea is that, you're the greatest health influencer of everyone around you as a mid life woman. So let's talk about how to not react. And then that can set us up perfectly to talk about what it's like to go through any of those scenarios in your power.
Mhm.
So let's just slow it down and think about the word react, right? And so when you react, what's going on there is you are reactivating something that is a trigger for you. And the way that I think about it is that when we have circumstances that go on earlier on in our life, is we have to kind of tell a story. We have to explain why those situations are happening, why we're being treated in the way that we are being treated. And whatever explanation we come to have, that is going to stay with us as kind of like our go to explanation. And it stays with us like kindling inside of us, right? And then when somebody else acts in a way where if you feel excluded or if you feel interrupted or somebody does something that maybe you misinterpret and you take it personally, right? Essentially, that person's behavior is like a match that, like, you know what I mean? Strikes that kindling, and there you are, you're triggered. And you'll know that because you'll have some sort of a sensation in your body where you feel that, like, really like a gut punch or kind of a sharp sensation in your body, and you just feel emotionally hijacked. You feel like now your whole world is colored differently. You know what I mean? Now everything feels like painful, and that they meant that about you, and essentially what it's doing is that it's reactivating some sense that you've developed along the way, where maybe you're not enough or you don't matter, and your needs, aren't given priority, and all of those kinds of things. So that's what's happening when you are reacting.
Wow. Okay. Love it, hate it.
Well,
Okay.
the good news there actually is that, and this is so key to getting back in your power, is that it really, really seems like what the other person is doing, what they said or didn't say, it really seems like that's the cause of you feeling in a swirl inside of yourself. And it's actually quite empowering for you to realize that it wasn't what they did per se, that it's really because it's activating this kindling inside of you, because that you have control over. So this leads you right back to kind of yourself and what you do have control over. And when you're in your power, you have a sense of agency, meaning you have a sense of control. You feel like I can tell the story that I want to tell in this situation. And what that gives you is a sense of sovereignty, where it's like you have ownership over yourself. Like you decide the narrative that you're going to tell about the situation. And if other people have had perceptions of you for a long time that are now outdated or were never even true about you in the first place, you can rewrite those narratives and you can decide who you want to be. And this is the freedom that comes from being in your power.
Love it. I'm putting a little weight on your shoulders. How do you condition? How do you train? How do you coach somebody to do this regularly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's really helpful anytime that you're having a reaction, and especially one that might be disproportionate to the situation. It's really good for you to know that that's a sign that you've been triggered. And a trigger, the way that I think about it is it's kind of it's a reminder of experiences that you've had too often in your life where you didn't feel in control, right? And so this kindling got reactivated. And so it's an opportunity for you to say, oh, okay, so I'm being kind of, pulled back into a pattern. And usually, what happens there is there's some kind of, like story that you've made up that is very, it's very like high level and kind of vague and like what I call globalizing, like I'm not good enough, or I don't matter, or they don't respect me, or something like that. And anytime that you're telling a story that's really kind of global like that, it's a sign that you're not really looking at the actual situation. So I don't know, like, let's just like take an example. Like let's just say a bunch of your friends are getting together and you find out that they're going for dinner or getting together, but you weren't invited. And a work analogy could be like people were meeting to discuss something and you were, you're not on the invite to be at that meeting. So it's just a typical example. Any of us could relate to this. So immediately we'd go to that place like, why are they excluding me? I feel marginalized? What is it about me? Right. And so you always have the opportunity to be more objective and to do what I call tell an alternative story. So you have to require yourself to tell 3 alternative stories before you're allowed to act. So why were they getting together in a meeting? I had a doctor, actually, I was coaching recently. She was the head of a clinic, and this happened where all the other physicians were invited to a meeting where they were going to, be talking to a candidate to come into their clinic, and their administrative person had arranged this meeting, and the head of the clinic, my client, was not invited. And so immediately she went to that place, of like, what does this mean about me? And I'm worthless as a leader and all of that. And then we just, put it through like, what are 3 alternative stories? And it was like, well, actually, maybe my assistant was trying to like do all the pre-work so that she didn't feel like she was wasting my time until we had the final candidates. Or her father has been in the hospital the last few days. She has had a lot on her mind. Maybe she just like quickly went through and put people on the, on the invite list and just didn't realize that I wasn't on it. Or another explanation is, something, this is like a good example of, we don't really have a process for how we like vet people to, come into our clinic. So like maybe she just was kind of winging it. So it's just an example of like, what was really going on there. And then when she actually like looked into it, it was a combination of those stories, So here she was all upset and taking it personally and having it mean something about her, when that's not really what was going on. So I think always trying to be objective, tell 3 alternative stories. And then I think the final thing is really think about like, who do you want to be in that situation? Like, who do you want to show up as? And like with her, we had already discussed that. And for her, she wanted to be a poised problem solver. Like that's what she wanted to be known for. And that was the energy that felt really great for her in her body. So it was like, so which of these ways of looking at the situation helped you to be a poised problem solver? She was like, well, she was probably trying to save me time. And it is true. She's been really scattered the last couple of days. And like, it just totally changed the energy. So when she reacted, she came home, she complained and vented to her husband. She kind of plopped down on the couch. She didn't take care. She didn't eat well. She didn't exercise, that day because she just was kind of off, and she was in a mood and she was kicked out of her power. But when she got back in her power, it was like, yeah, and then she followed up with her assistant, and it was all about like, hey, let's actually talk about a process and, the way that we go through who we invite and how we set this up and stuff like that, which really made her feel again like she was the leader and the poised problem solver.
Sweet. I love that. And you've really touched on this a couple of times, that like the domino effect of not being in your power, even though, we don't necessarily plan our entire days around our fitness or what we're going to eat or not going to eat, but we can get easily rocked off of our intention by doing this. Is there a specific instance where you might say, okay, part of the reason someone isn't motivated to exercise or is finding, many people, listeners, I know you identify with this, they will blame themselves for not having enough willpower or not having enough discipline. How could like not being in your power be related to this? Just like, why can't I do this? Everybody else can do this. Why can't I do this?
This is so important. And I so relate to this myself because I'm like a really avid exerciser. So when Deborah and I have been at conferences together, it's she and I are in the gym, you know what I mean? Even when no one else is there. And, but I know like when I get emotionally reactive, it just puts me into like a negative mood and like I don't want to. Like I don't want to take care of myself, even though I know intellectually that it's the right thing to do because I just feel in a funk. And the way that I think about it, being in your power is like the ultimate form of self-care, or it's the ultimate like foundation to take care of yourself, right? Because, you can go for manicures and massages and go out for martinis with your friends and like have at it, like go have fun. Yes, do that. But still, the underlying feeling of like you feel powerless or you don't feel good about yourself is still there, right? And that's why like doing the fitness regimens that you talk about, it keeps you like in a good momentum. It makes you so proud of yourself. It literally and emotionally like builds up your strength, and you keep like in a good flow, and you remember who you are when you do your workouts, Deborah. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you remember who you are, and it keeps you in your power. And I think it's so important. And I'll give you another example of this. So I was coaching a woman who was an executive in a company, and she was at a pretty high level, and she had a guy below her who he wasn't like fulfilling on his plans. He wasn't completing his goals, and she was like very frustrated with him. And each time she interacted with him, it was like yet another frustration. It was like yet another feeling of like kicked out of her power, like, oh, I have to deal with this. And what do I do about him? And feeling bad about herself as a leader. And so what I told her is how important it is for her to kind of move that frustrating emotion and anger and resentment through her body. And we know that one of the best ways to do this is to exercise, and especially like physical, like vigorous exercise where you take people. Sometimes you're showing us how to build strength, but sometimes you're showing us how to go to kind of like our edge. And when you do that, and it really kind of completes the stress cycle. So it moves that emotion through your system, and then it's not continuing to operate on you. And this is an important distinction. There's like the stress of a situation, which was this frustrating like work scenario. Excuse me, let me say that again. There's the stressor, which is this particular frustrating scenario. And then there's the stress juice that builds up in our body when we're in situations that we can't control or people who are difficult to deal with. And even when we actually deal with this scenario, which is, important to do, like actually be more effective at getting that guy to do what you need from him or getting that guy out of your life, but even still, even like you have to deal with those situations so it doesn't keep going on. But even if you've dealt with it, still the stress is in your body and it's continuing to, potentially cause deterioration. So what role model for us and teach us is so important, because it's one of the best ways to really move kind of that stress juice out of your body. And this client of mine, she wouldn't exercise, and she would just sit there like from morning till night, long days with like all of these frustrating scenarios because she had such a big job. And she said to me, "I'm too tired to work out." And she's like, "I'm just exhausted." And I said back to her, you know what I mean? It's like, you have so much emotion inside of you. Do you know how much energy it takes up to not feel what you are feeling? Right?
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like being an encaged tiger. You know what I mean? It's like so much effort goes into not feeling what she's feeling. So, one of the things I had her like start doing is just like moving her emotion through. And with some of the exercises, that you've given us, or even just something that could be like, just dance to a song for 3 minutes in between meetings, maybe put on kind of a rage song. You know what I mean? And just
Right.
like have at it. Or like another client I had who had a bully boss, or it could be a narcissistic family member or a child who's really difficult to deal with. I mean, it could be anyone, and she would go into her car and roll up the windows and just let it rip, and she'd be like, "Oh, I feel so much better afterwards." So you really have to do this. And then when my client, started to exercise and started to move her body, she was like, "Oh, I have so much more energy." Well,
Yes, that is so it. And I also wanted to bring in something. So, although this is not like the intense kind of moving through, there's also some research about like the ability to assume happiness and joy with certain poses.
mhm.
And when you look at like warrior pose, I mean, like, what a freaking good name is that anyway, right? But we lead with our breastbone, we're lifted up. Posture is great, heart wide open, and there's actually research to show that, if you are depressed, I mean, what's our posture? If you are happy and exuberant and you're waving at somebody you love, you have a totally different posture. And so speak to that just a little bit. So actually, even calmer kinds of activity, even swimming, like you lead with your breastbone, you're open. What do you have to say about that? Like those kinds of posing and more gentle, but still valuable.
I think it's fantastic. And, we're so connected to our bodies, even though there's so much emphasis on like only being in our minds throughout the day. And your mind follows your breath, and your mind follows, kind of the hormones and what's sent up to your brain from these poses. And so it's so instant. I mean, you could spend 60 seconds in a warrior pose and you totally feel different already.
Truth. Truth. Okay.
And it
So,
creates a positive spiral. And I think that's really important, because for anyone who feels kind of stuck in your life,
mm,
usually sort of, there's some sort of like negative spiral. You know what I mean? There's some sort of negative spiral. And so any one thing that you do in order to kind of get back in your power can just set you up on a positive spiral. And one of the kind of mantras in my book, In Your Power, it's based on the idea of be impeccable for your 50%. Be impeccable for your 50%. That means, like in any situation that feels really stuck, or you're just, reacting, or you're just like, you feel powerless and not good, you not feel not good about yourself or stuff. In that situation, just think about that situation and kind of sort out what are the aspects of the situation that you can control. That's your 50%, and distinguish that from the aspects of the situation you can't control, the other 50%. And the thing is, Deborah, when you focus on the aspects of the situation you can't control, you leak your power. It's just like, and just think of any scenario, right? Where, you feel that way. So you're leaking your power, all of that drain. Like, no wonder you feel exhausted. No wonder you're kind of staying in a negative emotion. So the the fastest way out really is to be impeccable for your 50%. So really maximize what you can control, like take 100% responsibility for what you can control in your 50%. And literally, when you just start by asking yourself that question, like, where's my power? Like, just asking yourself that question, where's my power? You know, how can I be impeccable for my 50%? Your brain is already going to start looking at aspects of the situation that you weren't even looking at before because you were so busy. And by the way, your brain set you up to have that stress response because that's how we're built, is always to look at like what's threatening us, what can't we control? So you can override that natural automatic response and just start looking at what can I control in this situation. It's already instantly going to put you into a different energy, and that can start you on that positive spiral.
What do you say with women who get in their own way? Like, I'm too busy, constant excuses because, we got a yellow legal pad. We feel the whole damn thing with
Mm-hmm.
things that we have to do today, which we could never ever get done. And I mean, we keep doing, is that reaction? Is that we've lost our power, or is that we are ruining our own power?
Yeah. So one way to not be in our power is we leak our power. Another way is we give away our power, right? And so when we're doing too many things, what's gone on there is we haven't really been impeccable for our 50%, like really thought about like, what do I really want? What am I here for? What's the best way to use my strengths to make the impact that I want, right? Because we're so busy kind of bleeding ourselves, doing for everyone and just reacting to try to survive the day, that we're in that part of our kind of stress nervous system. And that part of our nervous system doesn't allow us to ask the question like, what do I want? Right? So we're just giving our power away. And, it's not being selfish, it's being self first, right? And actually, being in your power is really, like I said at the beginning, like it's about being able to stay good in you. And in order to do that, you really have to kind of like know what your yes is and know what your no is. So if you even just think about a situation right now where like something that was like totally a yes, you're like, yes. When somebody asked me, I was like, yes, like that's a yes. Like, where do you feel that in your body? What's the energy there? And then think of a situation where somebody asked you to do something and it was like a no. It was like, I feel resentful. I feel taken advantage of. I don't really want to do that. That's out of obligation. And like, where do you feel that in your body? And, you can start to observe and you can own your life, right? And you can start to problem solve your life to orient it around your yeses and not around your no's. So if you're kind of saying yes to everything and your plate is overly full, um, it means that you have an opportunity to be impeccable for your 50%, and where it's a no, to really like own that. I know you're going to feel bad. I know you're going to feel rude and all of those kinds of things, but you really have to own your value. You really have to think about like, Deborah, it's like you have a gift, and you have experience and you know things deeply. And if you got so busy that you couldn't like bring this work and this podcast and these like routines to us, like you'd be depriving us. So you really have to kind of own it, and you want to enjoy who you are. And you want to enjoy like the people that you can give to and that you choose, and like, go deep with them and take pleasure in that and enjoy that and enjoy the rewards of like where you can give, rather than feeling like you're just doing everything out of obligation.
Beautifully said. Fantastic way to finish. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's been such an honor. And if these kinds of ways of thinking are resonating for you and inspiring for you, this is like just the tip of the iceberg. And I want to encourage you to pick up your copy of In Your Power: React Less, Regain Control, Raise Others. And this is a really great book, actually, to gift to the people in your life who you want to empower. That's what people have been telling me as well.
I love that. And I love, we've said it, like you're a huge influencer listener. And I love the idea of empowering young women with this. So,
Because that's right. Because the way that I think
yeah,
about it, when you're in your power, you raise everyone around you. And that's what it means to be a woman in your power. And I also, if it's okay, Deborah, I have some kind of special gifts and kind of bonuses that people who are your listeners can access if they go to www.inyourpowerbook.com, inyourpowerbook.com. And that's where, after you pick up your book, you can let me know. And I'm going to do a quick start workshop to get you going on some of these skills and give you some scripts for how you can say no to the people in your life.
I love it. Absolutely. We're all about gifts here. All right. Got that link. I copied that down. I also will have ways, listeners, that you can connect with Sharon. And I love hearing from you. And if you have questions or you have comments about today's show, you can leave them at flipping50.com/in your power. What are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today.